Hey guys, tonight we slip through a gate that has swallowed more secrets than 1,000 locked diaries. It is the year 1578, and the Bosphorus is black glass beneath the moon. Lanterns sway gently on the pier, their light trembling over water salted by the day's winds. You stand at the foot of Topkapi Palace, the sprawling marble-veined heart of the Ottoman Empire. Behind those thick walls, the Sultan rules 20 million souls. But deeper inside, behind yet another set of guarded gates, lies the Harem. This is not the story of silk pillows and perfume you've heard in taverns. This is a machine, a world inside a world, with rules sharper than any sword. Tonight, you are the newest part of it. You arrive by Kaikei, your hands raw from holding on during the crossing. The boat's hull kisses the stone steps, and two tall eunuchs in black robes are waiting. You feel the weight of their gaze, not curious, not kind, just the cold tallying of property. They do not ask your name, that was stripped from you miles ago, somewhere between the dusty caravan road from Aleppo and the inner courtyard of the palace. Now, you are only a semie novice. The palace swallows you whole. The first gate, Babas Adir, the gate of felicity, rises like an executioner's blade. Past its arch the air changes, cooler, scented faintly of sandalwood and oil lamps. Your slippers make no sound on the polished stone. Behind you, the harbour's breath fades. In front, the shadows deepen. You will not see the open sky for days. You probably won't survive this, not in the way you once understood survival. You'll learn the rules or be swallowed by them. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and what time your night begins. This is the sleepless night of the harem. Close your door, draw the curtains, and try not to let anyone hear you breathe. The new arrivals, a cluster of 12 girls, shuffle in line. Some keep their heads down, some glance nervously at the vaulted ceilings painted with curling tulip motifs. Every step forward seems to echo, bouncing off blue Iznik tiles that line the walls like frozen rivers. From above, on a narrow wooden balcony, a figure watches. His robe is black, his turban tall. The head of the eunuchs, his face is unreadable, as if carved from stone. You don't need to be told that nothing escapes his notice. The line halts in a round atrium where a marble fountain trickles. The water's surface trembles with tiny ripples, but no one dares to look directly at it. The eyes in this place are sharper than the blades stored in the Sultan's armory. A woman appears, the mistress of novices. Her face is powdered white, her eyebrows darkened in precise arcs. She carries no weapon, but the hush that falls is as sudden as if she had drawn a dagger. When your hair grows again, she says, "We will speak of names." It's not a welcome, it's a sentence. She turns, and a set of carved wooden doors swing open. The air inside the chamber hits you like vinegar. It's laced with crushed lavender, rosewater, garlic and lye. This is the cleansing room. You are ordered to undress. Every stitch of cloth, every trinket, every hairpin gone. They start with your hair. A bone comb scrapes your scalp, breaking apart weeks of dust and salt. Your skin is scrubbed with coarse cloth and lemon salt until you feel raw. They wash between your toes, behind your ears, even under your tongue. No one speaks. The only sound is water slapping basins and the quick intake of breath when the scrubbing burns. A girl near the end of the line sways and collapses. No one rushes to help her. One of the attendants simply splashes her face with a basin of cold water and pushes her back into place. When it's over, you are dried with rough towels, then dusted in white powder that clings to your skin like frost. A plain linen shift is draped over you. It's stiff, coarse, and without colour. There is no belt, no decoration. A deliberate erasure of self. Your old clothes are taken away. You will never see them again. You are led through another hallway, the walls so close you could touch both sides at once. The flicker of oil lamps throws warped shadows on the tiles, making the painted tulips bend and sway. The dormitory smells faintly of ashen cumin. Low vaulted ceilings press down, trapping heat from the braziers. Straw mats are laid in neat rows along the walls, each one folded over a single thin quilt. A mat is dropped at your feet in the far corner. That is your space. It's near the lavatories, the least desirable spot. You set down your new wooden comb and the folded cotton trousers they've given you. That's all you own now. Around you, the other novices glance up from their mats, eyes quick and assessing. They say nothing, but you can feel the measurement: height, posture, confidence. Everyone is deciding where you fit in the unspoken ranking. You've already learned one thing. In the harem, silence is safer than truth. The bell sounds 3 times. Not a melodic chime, but a flat clang of metal on metal. That means evening chores. You're handed a brass coal pan and told to refill the braziers in the older girls' chambers. The embers glow faintly through the thin mesh cover, and every step sends up a faint metallic scent. The first chamber you enter is curtained in blue silk, embroidered with silver vines. Inside, a young woman reclines on a heap of cushions. Her hair is oiled, her shift dyed red. She doesn't look at you for more than a second, just enough to make it clear you're beneath notice. You've already heard the whispers. A red shift means the Sultan has chosen you at least once. When you return to the dormitory, a Tunisian girl offers you a sweet wrapped in a fig leaf. You accept, but you don't smile. The exchange is small, but in this place, nothing is free. The kitchens are as loud as the dormitories are silent. Copper pots hang from hooks, their bellies catching the firelight. The air smells of stewed lamb, chickpeas, honey, and hot bread. You're set to polishing the great brass trays that carry food to the Sultan's table. You scrub with ash and lemon. Your arms ache after minutes, but the mistress of novices circles like a hawk, tapping slow workers on the back of the head with her knuckles. One of the older girls hums softly as she works. The tune is low, curling and in a language you don't understand, maybe Persian, maybe Georgian. It's the first sound of beauty you've heard since stepping through the gate. A eunuch passes, and the humming stops instantly. Silence crashes down like a dropped curtain. Only the crackle of the hearth remains. Later, you are herded into the hammam. The heat swallows you whole, wet, fragrant, almost dizzying. Orange blossom water steams from copper bowls, mixing with the smell of soap and warm stone. You kneel by a marble basin, scooping warm water over your shoulders. The heat loosens your muscles, but you keep your back straight. Slouching invites a slap from the attendants. The whispers begin almost immediately, thin and sharp as sewing needles. Did you hear about Jasmine? She's gone. No, she's with child. It's the Grand Vizier's. Liar, he wouldn't dare. Not with the Valid Sultan watching. Hush. She has ears in the walls. Laughter follows, not loud, but dangerous. Someone asks where you're from. You answer with a shrug. Far away. It's easier than telling the truth. Back in the dormitory, the lamps burn lower. The air is thick with the mingled smells of oil, powder, and unwashed linen. Most girls sit cross-legged on their mats, plaiting each other's hair or sewing small repairs into their shifts. You lie down, pulling the quilt over your legs. The stone beneath the mat still radiates the day's heat. Somewhere down the hall, a chime sounds once. Silence follows. A girl 2 mats away rises quietly, tying her hair with a strip of silk. She vanishes behind the curtain at the far end of the room. No one speaks, but every pair of eyes follows her shadow. She will either return at dawn or not at all. Beside you, a girl turns her face into a sleeve. You hear the slow, muffled sound of her crying. You don't move. You just close your eyes, as if stillness might make you invisible in a place where nothing is truly hidden. And this is only the first hour of the night. The dormitory doesn't sleep. Not really. Even after the girl is taken from her mat, there's a faint hum in the air, a restlessness that won't settle, the hiss of whispers, the soft scrape of a comb through tangled hair, the occasional cough muffled into a sleeve. Somewhere far down the corridor, the deep rhythmic creak of a door hinge opening and closing again. You keep your eyes closed. It's not that you're tired. Your body is too taut for that. But you've already learned that watching too much invites trouble. In here, the less you notice, the safer you are. But the night has its own ways of pulling you in. The mat beneath you is thin, the quilt scratchy. Every few minutes, a breeze slips in from under the door, carrying the faint scent of sandalwood from the corridor braziers. You let yourself follow it in your mind, down the winding hallways, past the courtyards you glimpsed earlier. You imagine them lit by oil lamps. their gardens sleeping under the silver wash of moonlight. You can almost feel the cool of the marble beneath your feet, until the bell clangs again. Not for you. Not yet. 2 eunuchs appear at the doorway. Their robes brush the floor, the black cloth swallowing the lamplight. One holds a small brass lantern, the other a leather strap wound neatly around his hand. They don't speak. They don't need to. A girl near the center of the room stands, her bare feet silent on the stone. She lowers her head, but her shoulders stay square. She disappears between them. The door closes, and the quiet folds back in on itself. No one asks questions. You're beginning to understand in the harem, knowing the wrong detail is as dangerous as being caught with a knife. The chores continue well past midnight. You're called to help an older girl refill the water basins. The copper pitchers are heavy, and the corridors stretch endlessly, turning and doubling back until you've lost your sense of direction. The older girl moves quickly, never looking directly at the guards you pass. "Keep your head down," she murmurs without moving her lips. They remember faces. The water rooms are dim, lit by a single oil lamp set high in the wall. You pour carefully, letting the water flow smoothly into the basins without splashing. The air here smells faintly of mint, someone's attempt to hide the damp. On the way back, you pass an open doorway draped with gold-threaded silk. Inside, you glimpse a slice of another world. Carpets from Persia, low tables crowded with crystal bowls of almonds and sugared apricots, cushions so plush they look like they'd swallow you whole. The scent of rosewater is almost dizzying. The girl you're with doesn't even glance inside. She tugs your sleeve, pulling you along. "That's not for us," she whispers. When you return to the dormitory, the air feels thicker. The lamps have been turned down so low the room is nearly dark. You can just make out the glint of eyes watching you from the far corner. In the bed beside yours, the Tunisian girl, the one who gave you the sweet, leans closer. Her voice is so soft you almost don't hear it. "They'll test you," she says. "The older ones. They'll watch to see if you break. If you do, they'll eat you alive." She lies back down without another word. You wonder how many nights she's been here, how many she's survived. Hours slip by in a slow, uneasy tide. At some point you hear music drifting faintly through the corridors, the soft plucking of an oud, joined by the high, thin cry of a ney flute. It's not the raucous music of taverns. This is something quieter, more deliberate, a sound that coils into the air like smoke. The girls around you tilt their heads, listening. Everyone knows what it means. The Sultan has chosen. Somewhere in the palace a single door has been opened, and one girl's life has shifted forever. Maybe upward, maybe not. You've heard enough whispered warnings to know that the Sultan's favour is not the same as safety. The music fades, replaced by the muffled shuffle of footsteps in the hall. A eunuch passes the doorway, glances in, and moves on. His sandals make no sound, but the faint click of the lantern's brass handle against his ring tells you exactly how far he's gone, before the noise disappears. The air feels colder after he leaves. Later, a commotion stirs at the far end of the hall. A sharp word, the slap of a palm against wood, the scrape of something heavy being dragged. The sound echoes once, then done. No one moves. You shift your gaze to the curtain at the doorway, half expecting a shadow to appear. Nothing. Only the faint hum of the braziers and the slow drip of water from the basin near the wall. It's almost dawn when the headmistress herself enters. The room stiffens. She moves slowly, her eyes sliding over each bed. When she reaches yours, she stops. For a moment you think she might speak. Instead, she picks up your wooden comb, inspects it and sets it back down, without a word. Then she moves on. When she leaves, the air feels as though it's been released from a tight knot. You do not sleep, not even when the call to prayer begins outside, its echo threading faintly through the thick stone walls. You realize the night has passed, and yet it hasn't ended. The harem never sleeps. It only waits. You learn your rank before anyone bothers to tell you your name. It happens in a single gesture. The mistress of novices slides your mat with the toe of her slipper until it bumps the low wall by the lavatories. The mat makes a soft schloss against the stone, like a librarian telling you to keep your dreams down. She doesn't look at you. She is looking at the line of mats themselves, making sure the geometry of obedience is correct. The farther from the center, the lower the status. You, for now, are practically sleeping in the plumbing. You are a semi-novice, one grain among many in a sack you cannot yet lift. The word travels across the dormitory in silence, carried by glances, not voices. Heads tilt, eyes weigh. Someone's lips tug, not quite a smile. Welcome to the lowest rung. Please enjoy your complimentary draft from the door and the nightly chorus of pipes. The dormitory is a lesson written in stone. Closer to the middle, thicker quilts, higher shelves, personal chests with little brass locks. Farther out, the floor's slight chill seeping through straw, a shelf shared with 3 others, a comb that splinters if you breathe too hard. Yours. You notice the braziers too. Near the center, their bellies glow fat and red. Out here, the coals pout like sullen cherries. Heat has a pecking order. Above the mats, a narrow rail runs the length of the room, from which curtains can be dropped in a crisis of modesty. You will not see those curtains fall tonight. Privacy is a privilege with a rank and a signature. You have neither. On the wall, a board lists your world in chalk. You cannot read all of it yet, but the older girl beside you taps the lines with a finger the color of weak tea and translates in a whisper that doesn't quite move her lips. Left column is tasks, middle is groups, right is the Kalfa who checks your hands. See? Sewing, laundry, mending, brazier, water, kitchen, and she squints. Errands. You ask what errands are without using your voice. She lifts her eyebrows. Errands are anything the upper ranks don't want to be seen doing. The hierarchy is alive, not a chart. It breathes in who rises first when a bell rings and who is allowed 1 heartbeat more in bed. It is in the way bowls of soup are placed. Near mats receive their ladles full and steady. Outer mats get the scrape across the bottom. You discover your first night that you are apparently a scholar of chickpea arithmetic. It is in the neat stack of folded shifts at the center. Silk cotton blend for the favored linen stiff as a lecture for you. Even the lamps obey the best light pools where the oldest eyes. You catalogue the titles as the night stretches. Kalfa, senior attendants, the ones who carry keys and don't rattle them. They organize, assign, correct. They have the particular smile of people who can make you clean the same spot twice because you seemed too proud doing it once. Uster, masters of a craft, embroidery, music, dance, needlework, accounts. They speak to you through your hands. If you are clumsy, you will feel it in your shoulders the next day. Odalisque. Girls like you, but not exactly like you. Some are newer, some already slipping toward favor like swans finding a current. It is a word with soft corners that can still bruise. Iqbal. Favorites who have spent at least 1 night in the inner light. The term tastes like sugared almonds and risk. They walk differently. The floor moves out of their way. Khanin consorts who have given the Sultan sons titles clipped like coins. 2nd, 3rd, 4th. They seldom pass this corridor, yet their decisions reach it like weather. Heseki, the favored consort, a son you must not look at directly. You will probably never see her, which is frankly safer for your knees. Valid Sultan, mother of the Sultan, power in a lattice shadow. When people say the harem, they might mean her thoughts. There are other ranks too, temporary as storms. In favor, out of sight, under consideration, awaiting instruction. Status here can change faster than a candle guttering in a draft. Your position tonight is a sentence by morning. It could be punctuation. You explore your corner with the patience of a thief. The wall has a crack that runs from the baseboard to a tiled blue as a saltwater dream. If you press your ear to it, you can hear the dormitory's other heartbeat, pipes sighing, faint trickles, the predictable cough of an old brazen spout, 2 cubits to your left. The sound will be your lullaby, whether you like it or not. Spoiler, not. Your shelf holds your new possessions. Wooden comb, cotton trousers, a spool of thread you're fairly certain was once 3 spools, and a needle barbed at the eye, because someone in the chain of command had a day. You place them in a line as if arranging a very small army that will never win a war. Above the shelf, someone has scratched a tiny tulip into the plaster. You touch it with 1 finger and promise it nothing. An older Kalfa strides down the aisle. She isn't tall but moves as if the floor signed a treaty with her feet. She drags her knuckles lightly across the quilts, an inspection you can hear more than see. When she reaches your mat, she stops and stares at your folded trousers. You realize too late, they are not folded in the dormitory's dialect. She unfolds them completely, then refolds them with crisp, swift meaning, corners aligned like arguments. She places them back, nods once to the principle of order, and moves on. Lesson 1. Even fabric must salute. Your neighbors teach you the silent lexicon. A double tap on the forearm means someone is listening. 3 taps, eunuch. A finger held like a pen to the palm means names will be taken. A pinch to the sleeve means share. A tug on the cuff means hi. These gestures travel faster than sound and safer than breath. You practice them with your eyes because even your fingers have to learn discretion. You also discover the geography of permission. The dormitory is a country with borders visible only at night. The line between your mat and the aisle is a frontier with customs. Cross it without socks after the second bell, and you will learn exactly how far a Kalfa's patience stretches. 2 steps. You will take 3. Do not recommend. The doorway itself is a gatehouse manned by rotating eunuchs, whose talent is distinguishing between innocent errand and adventure that ends on a roof. Do not attempt the second. On one side wall, near the center's warmth, there is a low platform, a dais only by 2 fingers height, but a mountain in meaning. The senior odalisques sleep there. Their quilts are patterned with vines and small birds, tiny embroidered creatures whose wings you could mistake for stitches. Where they lay their heads becomes the dormitory's compass. Their conversation is north, their laughter east, their boredom south, their silence west. Out where you are, weather arrives late. Training is another topography. You will learn to move your body the way the harem prefers bodies to move. In the morning, a usta will make you balance a thin silver spoon along your forearm while you walk the length of the room. If it falls, you start again. You will carry cups of water surface tension full, turn on the ball of your foot, and set them down without a ripple. You will practice bowing until your spine remembers humility without consulting your mouth. Languages are ranked too. Turkish is the river. You will drink it whether you are thirsty or not. Persian is the garden path. Poetry compliment, the way to make a request taste good. Arabic is the arch. Formal, sacred, precise. You will learn the right words to say forgive me, and more importantly, the exact tone that means don't notice me. You will also learn a little Italian, because merchants are a weather pattern. You will not learn the words for rescue me, because they do not exist in a place that claims to be safety. The schedule is pinned to the air more than the board. Before dawn, braziers fed, water fetched, linen shaken and your face arranged into neutrality. After first meal, instruction, sewing, dance, recitation, accounts. Yes, accounts. Somebody has to count the almonds, so the almonds don't count you. Midday, mending and polish. The brass trays must catch the Sultan's face like a sun. Afternoon, lessons in music or decorum, depending on how dangerous you appear to the Kalfa's idea of the future. Evening, quiet chores, short prayers, long waiting. Even the waiting has seniors. There is the girl who waits with her hand quietly over her stomach, lines of worry too old for her cheeks. There is the one who waits with a book, eyes walking steadier than her feet. There is the one who waits in laughter, mocking danger as if it buys mistakes cheaper. It doesn't. And there is you, waiting with your breath, because breath is what you own and what you can smuggle across borders. Food becomes its own parliament. Bowls arrive in a procession led by a Kalfa with a ledger. Yes, a ledger. You thought numbers lived in the treasury. Numbers live wherever power keeps score. The first ladles go to the days, steady and generous. So by the time the spoon visits your bowl, the stew is thinner, but a stubborn chickpea clings to the bottom like a small triumph. You learn to tilt the bowl just so to trap it. Victory has a flavor of cumin tonight. It will do. You take inventory of clothing. Shifts, white for most, red for chosen, pale blue for those who serve the Validede's wing, green for those on prayer duty during certain nights. Your linen is white. Wrinkled in the shape of other girls' days, a kaka shows you how to beat the wrinkles out with a flat piece of wood without beating the cloth to death. She says nothing, but her hands speak. Fewer blows, more rhythm. You listen with your wrists. Bathing rights are ranked as well. The hammam is shared, but ours are not. You will be allowed in late, after the steam has gentled and the attendants are counting towels. Steam carries talk, rank carries steam. When you do step in, you will find that the marble remembers who laughed at midday and who cried at dawn. It remembers everything, and if it doesn't, the attendants do. Speaking of memory, the harem keeps several. The official one, ledgers, boards, rosters, pages, who write things down with ink that looks like night. The unofficial one, the Kalfa's eyes. The communal one, the stories whispered across mats after lamps dim. You hear already the tale of a girl who arrived like you and now wears bracelets you could see your fear in. You also hear about the one who traded a ribbon for a secret and discovered the rate of exchange was her sleep. You find out how favors circulate. They are a currency with unhappy faces. A sweet from the kitchen can buy you an extra length of thread. That thread can buy you the right to sit by a better lamp for an hour. That hour of light can buy you a stitch that catches a Kalfa's attention and not her temper. You begin to see that getting by is a market. You also begin to see that markets close without notice. The eunuchs govern the borders, but they also rank among themselves. The young ones walk too loud until someone teaches them to move like cloth. The older ones glide and see everything, except sometimes the thing a Kalfa wants them to overlook, which is an art you are not yet brave enough to learn. The head of them, the Kizlar Aga, does not enter the dormitory tonight. His shadow does, though, in the behavior of those who do not want to be reported. Your bed teaches its own lessons. The straw crunches in a language you'll soon understand. This patch means a restless sleeper was here. That flattening says someone lay awake for a month. This soft spot promises the dream you won't get. You rearrange the quilt until it agrees to speak to your knees. You place your comb under the corner. Everyone does. It is a superstition pretending to be a habit. It says, "Let what was torn be ordered again by morning." Morning may laugh, but you tuck the comb anyway. Then there's the matter of names. You do not use your old one here. Names are earned, traded, bestowed like garments. The Kalfa writes a temporary name beside your line on the board, chalk squeaking, Layla. It might stick. It might be a placeholder. To test it, you listen to it in your head a few times. It sounds like a path. You decide to walk it until someone renames the road. Somewhere far away, your old name hears a door close. Names here are both keys and locks. For now you wear yours like a borrowed ring. The older novices hold congress of posture. They correct you without speaking. Shoulders down, chin level, hands quiet in the lap. Ankles crossed only when seated, never while standing. They are not unkind, only efficient. Kindness is not forbidden. It's rationed. You will receive some tonight in the form of a shared hair ribbon, a precise fold of your trousers, and a glance that says breathe now. You will pay it forward tomorrow with a towel warmed over a brazier before dawn. This is how survival becomes civil. You notice jokes live here too, tucked into corners like contraband oranges. A girl points at the shadow of a lopsided lamp and whispers, "Look, a tiny eunuch who skipped leg day," and 3 muffled snorts travel through straw. Another girl, sent to polish the same tray twice, bows to it the second time, intoning, "Your Majesty, now you may reflect." Someone pretends to teach a stray cat the spoon balancing exercise. The cat, a ruthless free agent, passes immediate. Laughter is the only perfume that doesn't get confiscated. Not all hierarchies are cruel. Some are simply old. The Ooster of embroidery fingers, stained with indigo, passes your corner and pauses at the tulip. Someone carved into the plaster years ago. She traces it with one calloused thumb, not quite touching, then moves on. For a moment, you feel connected to every girl who has slept on this row, who has counted the same tiles, who has wondered if the valves in the wall listen. The thought is strangely gentle. You belong to a pattern older than your fear. Rules arrive disguised as advice. Do not sit on another girl's quilt unless invited. Quilts are the only islands here. Do not compliment a thing you want. Someone will notice you want it. Never walk between a Kalfa and the door. She has earned first exit. If you drop a stitch, make your next one a song. If you drop a bowl, make your silence a prayer. When the bell rings, be already moving. When it doesn't, be still. If you are unsure, copy the nearest body that looks unbothered. If none look unbothered, congratulations, you have correctly assessed the situation. You memorize escape routes you will never use. The way past the storage alcove to a service stair, the narrow pinch in the corridor where the tiles change pattern and your steps sound different, the window that opens only as wide as a sigh. You imagine slipping through them anyway. Then you imagine the ledger of consequences. You file the routes under geometry, not plans. In this you are wise. The night stretches thin. Somewhere, a ney flute sends a single note through stone. You feel it in your teeth. From the center dais, a low murmur. Someone telling a story with no names. Just verbs and weather. She waited. It rained. A bowl shattered. Out here, you collect the leftover verbs and make your own grammar. You conjugate hope in the conditional. You conduct a census of eyes. Tired eyes, sharp eyes, eyes that could thread a needle in a thunderstorm. Kind eyes that come in pairs. Suspicious eyes that arrive alone. Eyes that have seen the inside of rooms you will never enter. Eyes that have learned how not to show the thing they want. You add yours to the register. Raw, curious, uncommitted to despair. The headmistress returns once before dawn. She says nothing, but her silence has punctuation. She stops at the board, wipes a smudge of chalk from the margin with the edge of her sleeve, and steps away. It feels like watching someone adjust the horizon. When she is gone, conversation resumes at the volume of moth wings. You learn who keeps needles for lending, the girl 2 mats down with the chipped tooth, who hoards dates, center days left corner obviously, who knows how to coax more warmth from a sulking brazier. Tunisian girl, she whispers to the coals like old friends. You file these data points as if building a map. You are building a map. You will need it. Before the first call to prayer, a Kalfa smuggles in a tray with cups of watered milk. The cups are not equal. They never are. Yours is thinner than a rumour, but sweeter than the air, by the lavatory, and you feel the sugar slide into your limbs like a promise you don't quite believe. The Kalfa's eyes soften when she sees how you hold the cup. 2 hands, grateful. Her mouth almost bends. Almost. You lay down. 2 mats over. A whisper. Layla, your temporary name, made real by being needed. You tilt your head. The Tunisian girl gestures to her hair ribbon, the one she lent you. She holds out a shorter piece, neatly cut, and nods toward your comb. The message is simple. The ribbon is for you now. You knot it around the comb's handle and tuck both beneath your quilt. Payment tomorrow. A warmed towel, as planned. You are becoming a small citizen. You think again of the red shift and the silk curtains, and tell yourself that rank is a ladder with missing rungs, not a simple climb. You let that image cool in your chest. You compose, silently, your first joke of the night, just for yourself. Congratulations. You've been promoted from cold feet to nose where the extra charcoal hides. Please keep your acceptance speech to a whisper. You smile without showing teeth. The straw answers with a good-natured crunch. When the muezzin's call threads through the stone, the first thin line of morning pulled across the city, you feel the dormitory change key. Bodies turn under quilts. A few girls sit up, hair falling like script over their shoulders. The hierarchy shifts again, as it will with every bell, every footstep, every bowl. The Kalfa at the door straightens, checks the hall, and nods to no one in particular. Somewhere, beyond this room, decisions are dressing for the day. You study the crack in the wall one last time, the tulip above your shelf, the ledger of sleeping breaths, the tiny differences that will matter more than the big words. You inhale damp stone, ash, and the lingering ghost of Rosewater from a corridor you cannot yet enter. You exhale the last shape of the night. Your mat does not move, but you do. The smallest shift, a declaration only your bones can hear. You have located yourself on the map. Outer ring, near the lavatories, under the eye of a tulip, Asame. Alive. The brazier in the corner burns low, its glow no more than a sulking ember in a belly of black ash. You sit on your mat, knees pulled close, eyes half-lidded but nowhere near sleep. The dormitory smells of last night's damp hair and the faintly sour tang of wet linen. But it's the sound that keeps you awake, the measured scrape of slippers on stone, coming closer in the corridor. You don't need to be told who it is. The eunuchs move differently from the Kalfas. Kalfas are purposeful. Eunuchs are inevitable. The sound grows until the door curtain sways, and two figures enter. Both are tall, their robes black enough to swallow the lamplight. The taller carries a small brass lantern, its flame trembling but steady. The other's hands are folded inside his sleeves, a habit that looks peaceful until you notice the tension in the knuckles. The taller one scans the room without moving his head. His eyes travel over each mat in turn, like a pen crossing a list. You realize this isn't an inspection, this is ownership. He stops near the center dais, where the favored novices lie. A single finger gestures, and a girl rises without hesitation. She doesn't glance at anyone, doesn't fumble for her slippers, doesn't even pull her quilt back over the mat when she leaves. The door curtain falls closed behind her, and the silence she leaves is not the same as the one before. No one asks where she's going. No one needs to. You're sent on a task soon after. It's not punishment, it's just how the night works. There is no such thing as off-duty in the harem. There is only moving or waiting to move. A Kalfa presses a copper pitcher into your hands, the metal warm from the kitchen fire. Water for the brazier in the valid Sultan's corridor, she says. Her voice is flat, as if she's reciting a shopping list. But she watches your face for a flicker of reaction. You school it into blankness. The corridors are cooler here, the marble floor polished until it holds a faint reflection of the oil lamps. The blue Iznik tiles are different too. Fewer floral patterns, more geometric designs, as if even the walls know they're closer to power. Halfway to your destination, you pass a closed door with a faint hum behind it. The sound is not singing, it's lower, more rhythmic, almost like prayer. You slow your pace, but the eunuch trailing behind you clears his throat, and you keep moving. At the far end, an older eunuch in white turban and black robe takes the picture from you. His hands are broad, the nails neatly trimmed, the skin dry from years near the heat. He nods once, a rare acknowledgement, and you turn back. On the way to the dormitory, you realize you've just walked through the territory of the most powerful woman in the empire, the Sultan's mother, and you hadn't even known until you were already inside. The hammam summons you next. This late at night it's empty except for one attendant, and the steam itself, rising from marble basins like ghosts. You carry folded towels, stacking them neatly on a carved wooden bench. The attendant, an older woman with arms strong from decades of scrubbing others, doesn't speak. She watches you work, her gaze as warm as it is assessing. When you finish, she takes one towel from the stack and hands it back to you. It's still warm, from the brazier. You're not sure if it's a gift or a test. By the time you return to the dormitory, the atmosphere has shifted again. A group of girls sits cross-legged on the floor, their quilts pulled around their shoulders. They're not whispering, not exactly, but their conversation is low enough to disappear under the hum of the braziers. You settle onto your mat, pretending not to listen, but their words drift toward you like smoke. She won't be back, one says. She'll be back, another replies, but not to this room. A shrug. Then she's gone anyway. It's not cruel. It's simply how the harem speaks about those who vanish into other wings. An hour later, you're sent on another errand, this time to carry a brass tray of small glass lamps to the musicians' gallery. The corridor leading there smells of jasmine and beeswax, the air warmer from the instruments' bodies soaking up heat. Two young men tune their ouds, the strings humming softly under their fingers. A ney player warms his breath into the flute, testing a note so pure it seems to hang in the air. You set the tray down and leave without a word. On your way back, you hear the music begin. It's not lively, it's slow, deliberate, each note lingering just long enough to make you feel as if you've stepped into someone else's memory. The sound follows you down the corridor until the next turn swallows it. When you finally return to your mat, the Tunisian girl is awake. She lies on her side, her head propped on one hand. In the dim light, Her eyes are sharp. "They're watching you," she says quietly. You think of the Kalfa who sent you to the Valids corridor, the eunuch who took the picture, the attendant in the Harem. "Who?" you ask. She shakes her head. "Doesn't matter. Just remember, in here, being noticed is never free." The hours crawl toward dawn. A few girls sleep, their breathing even, but most remain in that half-wakefulness the harem breeds, ready to move at the sound of a bell, a name, or a whispered command. From the corridor outside, footsteps approach again. This time, they pass without stopping. The sound fades, replaced by the faint call of the muezzin in the city beyond the palace walls. The first light will come soon, though you won't see it from here. You realize you haven't seen the sky since stepping off the kite, and you suspect that by the time you do, you will no longer be the same person who arrived. The bell clangs before the first hint of light. Not the sharp call for emergencies or the deep chime for visitors, but the flat, businesslike tone that means tasks begin now. Every girl on the outer mats sits up at once. The favoured on the days take their time, shifting under quilts, letting the rest of you feel the hierarchy in your knees. You fold your blanket with quick, practiced movements. There is no such thing as a lazy start here. The Kalfa at the doorway calls assignments in clipped Turkish. You catch your new name, Layla, followed by two words you don't yet understand. The Tunisian girl beside you mutters the translation without looking up. Coal duty. It sounds simple. You will learn quickly that it isn't. The coal room is buried deep in the palace, its air thick with the scent of char and damp wood. The walls are black streaked, the floor dusted with fine ash that clings instantly to your feet. The eunuch on guard hands you a scoop and a small brazier, yours to carry, fill and return. You work in pairs. Your partner is a slim girl from Circassia with a scar along her jaw, pale as a seam in linen. She doesn't speak, just gestures toward the pile of blackened lumps in the corner. Together, you fill your braziers, each scoop clinking like coins into a purse. The weight surprises you. Coal is heavier than it looks, and the brazier's metal is cold enough to sting your fingers. By the time you've filled 3, your arms ache. By the 5th, your shoulders burn. You pass through corridor after corridor, delivering heat to rooms that smell of cardamom and musk, jasmine and incense. In some, the girls glance up and smile faintly in thanks. In others, they do not even notice you enter. The final brazier goes to a chamber near the Sultan's private apartments. You're not allowed to cross the threshold. A eunuch takes it from you, the door closing before the sound of your footsteps fades. Back in the dormitory, your mat is gone. Not taken, moved. It now sits 2 places closer to the center dais. No one says why. The Tunisian girl glances at you once, then looks away. Her expression is not quite approval, not quite warning. You start to ask, but the bell rings again. The kitchen smells different in the morning. Less of spices and slow-cooked meats, more of yeast, warm milk, and the earthy tang of ground chickpeas. Large copper pots bubble gently on the hearth, the steam clouding the windows and softening the painted tiles above. You're given a wooden spoon and a basin of dough. The Kalfa overseeing you demonstrates the motion: fold, press, turn. The dough is soft under your fingers, yielding but stubborn in places where it's cooler. Nearby, another novice shells pistachios with a small wooden mallet, the rhythmic tapping filling the air. Someone else chops dates, the sticky pieces clinging to her fingertips. It is the only time of day when the work feels almost safe. Almost. After breakfast is served to the higher ranks, the rest of you eat what's left. This morning, it's a thick lentil stew, a small piece of flatbread, and a few olives. You savor each bite, knowing the next meal could be hours away. Meals are one of the few moments when voices rise above a whisper. You hear scraps of conversation, some in Turkish, some in languages you don't yet understand. News travels fast in the harem, though truth travels slower. Today, the story is about a girl named Fatma, who was sent away 2 nights ago. Sent where? No one agrees. Some say to another palace, others to a small house in Üsküdar, others to a grave by the water's edge. You do not ask. In here, curiosity is a luxury few can afford. The training session begins an hour later in a long sunlit room with latticed windows. The light filters through in patterns that dance across the floor, but you know better than to let your eyes wander. Today's lesson is balance. Each novice is handed a brass bowl filled to the rim with water. You must walk from one end of the room to the other, turn and walk back without spilling a drop. The uste overseeing the exercise is an older woman with silver-threaded hair and sharp eyes. She corrects posture with a touch to the shoulder, a tilt of the chin, a tap to the elbow. When she passes you, she narrows her gaze, adjusts your stance, and nods for you to continue. Halfway through, the girl in front of you stumbles. Water sloshes over the rim, splattering onto the polished floor. The uste's voice cuts the air, calm, quiet, but heavy with disapproval. The girl is sent to the corner to practice bowing until the session ends. You finish your turn without spilling a drop. Later comes sewing. The fabric is fine silk, slippery under your fingers. You're tasked with stitching small gold sequins onto a length of crimson cloth. Each stitch must be invisible from the front. Tight but not puckered. The Kalfa checks your work twice, her eyes moving faster than her fingers. The second time, she pauses, lifts the cloth to the light, and says, "Better." It is the closest thing to praise you've heard since arriving. By evening, the palace changes. The air seems to grow heavier, the corridors more crowded. Eunuchs move briskly, carrying trays of sherbet, sweetmeats, and small dishes fragrant with saffron. Musicians tune their instruments in the distance, the soft notes winding through the halls like threads of silk. The older girls begin their preparations, hair oiled and braided, shifts changed for fresher linen, eyes lined with kohl. Some are silent, others laugh too loudly, masking nerves with noise. You and the other novices watch from the edges. This is not your world yet, but you're close enough to see the way ambition sharpens a face, the way fear hides behind painted lips. When the call comes for the Sultan's chosen companion, it's not a surprise who rises from the dais. She moves with practiced grace, her head high, her steps unhurried. The curtain falls behind her, and the room exhales in unison. The rest of the night is quieter. You lie on your mat, listening to the faint sounds drifting from somewhere deep in the palace. The music, the laughter, the footsteps that will eventually return. But you don't close your eyes. In the harem, sleep is never as deep as it seems. The lamps burn low, their light thick as syrup on the blue-tiled walls. Somewhere beyond the dormitory, a door shuts softly, followed by the shiver of a bolt sliding into place. That sound, the click of a lock, is one you've started to recognize, even when it's far away. It means someone has been placed where they can't leave until another hand decides. You shift under your quilt, the straw inside your mat whispering against the stone floor. Your muscles hum with fatigue from the day's labor, but your mind refuses to sleep. In here, you're learning. Night is not absence. Night is simply another shift, just with a different set of tasks and dangers. The Tunisian girl, Amara, you finally learned, lies on her side facing you. Her eyes are open, watching the doorway. "You hear it?" she whispers. You nod. "They're moving her," she says. "Not for the Sultan. Somewhere else." You don't ask who she is. The question would be wasted breath. Names are only used here when they're safe, and this one clearly isn't. A bell rings once. Somewhere down the hall, you've learned that one ring in the dead of night is never for chores. Moments later, the door curtain stirs, and a eunuch steps in. This one you've seen before, tall, with the kind of stillness that makes the space around him quieter. His eyes sweep the room, stopping only when they land on a girl near the corner. She sits up instantly, pulling her shawl over her shoulders. Her face is unreadable, as if she slipped into a mask she's worn many times before. They leave together. The door curtain falls shut, and the room exhales, though the air feels no lighter. Amara mutters something in Arabic under her breath, too soft for you to catch. Half an hour later, a Kalfa appears, her slippers whispering against the floor. She's carrying a tray of steaming cups, not for everyone, just for the girls on the dais and the two mats nearest it. The smell hits you instantly, cinnamon, honey, and the sharp undertone of cloves. You watch the steam curl upward, knowing the warmth won't reach you. But as she passes, the Kalfa's eyes flicker briefly toward you, then away. Small looks like that means something here. What? You don't yet know. The night stretches on, time marked only by the slow fading of the braziers. You're sent out once to fetch more coal for the kitchen fire. The corridor is almost completely dark, lit only by the occasional wall niche holding a single oil lamp. In the silence, you notice the palace's other sounds: the sigh of the wind through lattice windows, the faint drip of water in the courtyard fountains, the way your own footsteps seem unnaturally loud. When you return, the dormitory feels different. Someone's mat is empty, who wasn't gone before. You lie down, pull the quilt to your chin, and fix your eyes on the faint crack in the wall above your shelf, the one shaped like a bent reed. It's a mark you've started using to anchor yourself, proof that some things don't move, no matter who comes and goes in the night. You must drift at some point, because you're startled awake by the low murmur of voices. It's not close, it's coming from the hallway. You catch fragments as the speakers pass. Too soon. Valid will decide. Not yet. The words sink into you like cold water. Before the first light, the bell rings again. The morning signal. The girls rise in practiced silence, folding quilts, washing faces in the cold water basins, combing out hair. You follow the motions automatically, each step learned through repetition rather than thought. A Kalfa enters with the day's assignments. Your name, Layla, is paired with one you don't recognize, the sewing Usta. It will be a quiet day, you think. Her workshop is a narrow, high-ceilinged room, lit by a row of lattice windows. The air smells faintly of starch, silk, and beeswax from the polished wooden frames. Rolls of fabric are stacked neatly against one wall, and a low table in the center holds small bowls of beads, sequins, and spools of fine thread. The Usta doesn't look up when you enter. She gestures toward a stool by the table and slides a square of pale green silk toward you. "Edge it," she says simply. Her hands are quick and sure as she works on another piece, the needle flashing in and out of deep crimson cloth. You focus on your task, turning the silk carefully, letting the stitches disappear into the fold. She doesn't speak again until midday. "Better than yesterday," she says. It's not a compliment. Not exactly. But it's enough to make you sit a little straighter. You carry the finished pieces to the storage room at the end of the hall. Inside, shelves sag under the weight of folded garments, embroidered kaftans, robes lined with sable, gauzy veils in every shade of the sky. The air is thick with the mingled scents of cedar, lavender, and the faint musk of silk that has been stored for years. You run your fingers lightly over one of the veils. It's so fine it clings to your skin like mist. And then you hear it, footsteps, quick and light, coming toward the room. You step back just as a Kalfa appears in the doorway. Her eyes land on you, then on the veil still draped over your fingers. She says nothing, but the look she gives you is a warning. You set it back, careful not to crease it. The afternoon is quieter, but the tension never fully leaves. You eat the midday meal, chickpea stew and bread with the other novices. Amora beside you. "You're moving up," she says suddenly. You glance at her. "Why?" She shrugs. "You're being noticed. That's always up." For a while, you don't know if it's encouragement or a caution. That evening, you're assigned to help in the musicians' gallery again. The air is warm from the braziers, and the instruments gleam under the lamplight. Ouds with inlaid mother of pearl, a kanun strung with silk, a row of small drums polished to a mirror sheen. As you arrange the cushions for the players, you overhear part of a conversation. "Tonight will be different," one says. The other just laughs quietly. It's always different. You carry the empty tray back to the dormitory, their words settling into you like stones dropped into deep water. By the time you lie down, the palace beyond your walls is already stirring for whatever different means. The music starts softly, drifting through the corridors, and the air in the dormitory shifts, every girl listening without moving. When the unit comes, no one pretends not to watch. He calls a name you don't know. A girl stands, smooths her hair, and follows him out. The door curtain falls. The silence after is heavier than the one before. You stare at the crack in the wall above your mat until your eyes blur, wondering if one night soon it will be your turn to rise when the bell calls, and whether you would walk toward the curtain or run from it. The curtain sways shut behind the chosen girl, and the air in the dormitory becomes something you can taste, metallic, heavy, almost electric. Nobody moves for a long while. Then the older odalisks on the dais shift under their quilts and start murmuring to one another, their voices soft but pointed. Whatever they're saying is not for you to hear, but your ears reach for it anyway. Amara catches your eye. The tilt of her head is subtle. Don't. You look down at your hands and count the shallow lines across your knuckles until the urge to listen fades. The night outside your walls is alive. You can hear it in the distant shuffle of slippered feet, in the soft click of a tray being set on a marble ledge, in the low hum of voices that rise and fall like wind behind latticed windows. You've come to recognize the rhythm. First, the musicians take their places, strings and skins and breath-warmed reeds, weaving together a sound that drifts like incense through the corridors. Then the trays begin to move. Sherbet, pistachios, rosewater candies. Then the silks swish and whisper as those in favor pass through the long halls toward wherever the Sultan has chosen to be that night. It is a choreography older than any of the girls here, older even than the eunuchs who guard the doors. The bell for your shift comes just before midnight. The Kalfa assigns you to the night errands, a catch-all duty that can mean anything from carrying towels to fetching warmed wine for an ailing consort. Tonight it's lighting the oil lamps in the passage between the Sultan's library and the small garden court. She hands you a clay oil jug and a taper. Quickly, she says, her eyes locking on yours. And do not linger. The corridor is long and narrow, the air scented with cedar from the carved shelves lining the walls. Through the lattice work you catch glimpses of shadowed courtyards where potted orange trees hunch in the dark, their leaves stirring faintly in the wind. You light each lamp in turn, the flame trembling as it catches the oil. The light makes the tiles shimmer, cobalt, white and emerald arranged in dizzying geometric patterns. At the fourth lamp you pause. Voice, "He is restless again," one says. Another replies, "Then she will soothe him, or she will be gone." You move on before the speakers round the corner, the taper's smoke trailing behind you. At the garden court, the air changes. It's cooler, fresher, carrying the faint perfume of damp earth and blossoms. The fountain at the centre murmurs over its marble lip. You fill the last lamp, watch the flame bloom inside the glass, then turn to leave. A shadow moves at the far end of the arcade. For a moment you think it's a eunuch, but the figure is smaller, swifter. She glances back once, and the lamplight catches her face, a novice you've seen in the Harem, her eyes wide and wild. Then she's gone, swallowed by the dark between two arches. You don't mention it when you return the jug. Back in the dormitory, the atmosphere is unchanged. Girls lie awake, staring at nothing, or whispering into their quilts. One plucks at a loose thread, winding it around her finger until the tip turns pale. You slide under your blanket and try to slow your breathing. The hours between midnight and dawn are the longest. They stretch, coil and stretch again, full of small noises that don't belong to sleep. The clink of a water jug being set down, the muffled cough of someone behind a curtain, the faint crackle of a brazier struggling against the chill. At some point Amara leans over. "You saw her," she murmurs. You don't answer. "She won't get far," she adds. No one does. The words stay with you until the first call to prayer threads through the palace walls, thin and far off. The morning chores come without pause. You're sent to polish the brass door handles along the east wing. They're shaped like tulips, their stems curling into the wood, and each one is cold against your cloth. The corridor smells of lemon oil, and the faint salt of the sea drifting in through high windows. As you work, you hear footsteps behind you and step aside instinctively. It's the Kuzla Ogre, the chief of the black eunuchs, moving at a measured pace, his robe trailing just above the floor. He doesn't look at you, but every muscle in your body tightens as he passes. Later, you're called to the storeroom to help unpack a new delivery. The crates are filled with bolts of silk, their colours rich even in the dim light, deep indigo, pomegranate red, the pale gold of morning tea. You stack them carefully on the shelves, your fingertips sliding over the smooth weave. One bolt slips slightly in your hands, and a scrap of parchment flutters to the floor. You pick it up. The writing is in Ottoman script you can't yet read, but the ink is fresh. Before you can slip it back, a Kalfa appears. Her eyes flick from the parchment to your face. Slowly, she takes it from you. folds it, and tucks it into her sleeve. "Mind your work," she says. "You do." The midday meal is quieter than usual. The older girls exchange looks but not words. Whatever is happening tonight, and there is always something happening, it's not being spoken aloud. Amara eats in silence beside you, tearing her bread into small pieces, dropping half of them into her stew before eating the rest plain. When she finally speaks, it's so low you almost miss it. "You'll see soon enough. Your duties after the meal take you to the laundry court, a walled enclosure with a central fountain. Lines of damp linen sway in the breeze, and the air smells of soap and wet cotton. You rinse cloth after cloth in the fountain's cold water, your hands numbing until you can't feel the skin. The work is repetitive, almost hypnotic. You start to lose track of time, until you notice the shadows stretching longer across the courtyard. As evening comes, the palace shifts again. Eunuchs move faster, lamps are lit earlier. The smell of roasting lamb and saffron rice drifts from the kitchens, mingling with the sharper scent of rosewater and musk from the women's chambers. Tonight you're sent to assist the musicians directly, not just in their gallery but in the small antechamber where they wait to be summoned. The air is thick with the scents of polished wood and the faint tang of resin. One of the players, a young man with deft fingers, tunes his oud, while another plucks a slow scale on the qanun. Their conversation is easy, unconcerned. They are guests here, not residents. You pour water into small cups for them, setting each one on a low table. When one thanks you, you almost forget to lower your gaze in time. The music begins just as you return to the dormitory. It winds through the halls, slow and deliberate, each note carrying the weight of expectation. When the eunuch arrives, he calls a name you don't know, but the girl who rises is the same one you saw in the garden court the night before, her escape attempt apparently forgiven, or perhaps punished in a different way. She walks past you without looking, her steps steady, her face unreadable. The curtain falls behind her, and again the silence that follows is heavier than the one before. You lie back on your mat and stare at the bent reed crack above your shelf, wondering what it will take for the curtain to sway for you, and whether that's a fate to be sought or avoided. The curtain stirs again before the air has even settled. Not for another girl. For him. The Khazlar Aga, the chief of the black eunuchs, steps into the dormitory without a word. His robe moves like a tide around him, deep black with an edge of gold embroidery that catches what little lamplight there is. The conversations die mid-whisper. Even the girls feigning sleep stop their careful breathing. You've seen him only twice before, both times in the corridors, flanked by two younger eunuchs. Here, in the heart of your world, his presence changes the air itself. It feels sharper, as though the walls have drawn in to listen. He doesn't speak. He walks the length of the room slowly, stopping here and there to look directly at a girl. Not touching, not beckoning, just a silent pause as if weighing something only he understands. When he reaches your row, your spine lengthens involuntarily. You look at the floor, but you feel the weight of his gaze pause on you for exactly 3 heartbeats before moving on. He leaves the way he came, quietly, without ceremony, the curtain falling back into place. Amara exhales first. He doesn't come without reason, she murmurs. What reason? She shrugs under her quilt. Could be the valet he'd asked. Could be he's looking for someone. Her eyes flick toward the empty mat of the girl who left earlier in the night. Could be he's counting. The rest of the night passes in small movements. A trip to the kitchen for warm water to refill the dormitory basin. A brazier, adjusted so its embers last until dawn. Quiet footsteps in the hall, sometimes passing, sometimes stopping just outside your door before moving on. By the time the first call to prayer threads through the walls, you've given up on real sleep. The morning comes with a list. The Kalfa at the doorway reads it aloud, the names sharp in the cool air. Yours is near the bottom, paired with the words library duty. You follow the others through a series of halls, until you reach a tall wooden door inlaid with ivory patterns. The room beyond smells of ink, aged paper, and cedar. The shelves rise so high you have to tip your head back to see their tops, each one lined with bound manuscripts and scrolls. The ustor in charge is an older man with a neat beard and a white turban. He gives you a cloth and a small jar of lemon oil, then gestures toward the lower shelves. Wipe only the wood, do not touch the pages. You work in silence, the grain of the cedar warm under your fingers, the lemon scent sharp in the stillness. Once you catch sight of a manuscript open on the central table, delicate Arabic calligraphy framed by gold leaf, an illustration of a garden so vivid you can almost smell the blossom. When the Oster notices your glance, he closes it gently and moves it out of reach. By midday your hands smell of cedar and lemon. You eat quickly, rice, lentils and a wedge of flatbread, then return for the second half of your duties, carrying a tray of small inkwells to the Sultan's copyists. Their chamber is quieter still, save for the soft scratch of reed pens on parchment. The air smells of gum Arabic and lampblack. No one looks up when you enter. You set the tray down, replace the empty inkwells, and leave without a word. That evening, the palace hums differently. It's not just the musicians tuning or the eunuchs carrying trays, it's a faster pulse, an almost imperceptible tension in the way everyone moves. Amara notices it too. Someone important is here, she says, as she folds her quilt. You're sent early to the musicians' antechamber, but this time you're not serving them. You're standing by the far wall, ready to carry messages to and from the dormitory, if called. The music starts before the sun has fully set, unusual enough to be noted. Through the open lattice, you catch glimpses of richly dressed guests being escorted toward the reception hall. They aren't harem residents. Their clothes are too foreign. They're bearing too assured. One woman wears a robe the color of crushed pomegranate, her hair threaded with pearls. She moves like someone who knows exactly how many eyes are on her. The curtain in your dormitory stirs again hours later. The eunuch who enters doesn't call a name immediately. He scans the room, then steps toward the dais. 3 girls rise at once, as if expecting it. He gestures to one, and the other 2 lie back down without expression. She leaves without looking at anyone. Amara watches the door long after it closes. That's twice in a row, she says quietly. Someone wants her noticed. The next morning, your duties take you to the Valid Sultan's wing. You don't enter her private rooms. Novices aren't permitted, but you carry folded linens to the attendants who do. The corridors here are quieter. The tiles patterned differently, the air scented with sandalwood and rose. One attendant accepts the linens and pauses to look at you. You're new, she said. You nod. She studies your face for a moment, as if trying to place it, then hands you a small dish of sugared almonds. Eat before they melt. By the time you return to the dormitory, the dish is empty. That night, the Khizlar Aga appears again. He doesn't enter, only stands in the doorway, scanning the room. His gaze pauses briefly on your mat, and then moves on. You don't sleep for a long time after that. The crack in the wall above your shelf seems deeper tonight. The reed shape in it bends more sharply, as if bowing under the weight of something unseen. When the bell rings just before dawn, you rise without waiting for the Kalfa's call. You don't know what the day will bring, but you can feel it shifting, like the palace itself has tilted a degree. And in the harem, a degree is enough to change everything. The tilt in the palace that you felt before dawn doesn't right itself with the morning call to prayer. It deepens. The dormitory stirs like a hive. The older girls move with more precision than usual, their eyes quick but not careless. Quilts are folded sharper, hair bound faster, slippers placed exactly parallel to the mat's edge. It's the kind of quiet efficiency that means inspection. When the Kalfa at the doorway speaks, her voice carries more weight than usual. Outer mat's washroom duty. Day. Remain. Everyone else to assignments. You follow Amara and 2 others toward the stone washroom at the end of the hall. The place smells faintly of ash soap and the damp ghost of last night's steam. The basins are cold, their copper rims sweating in the early chill. You scrub them with lemon water until your hands feel raw, the scent burning faintly in your nose. When you glance up, you catch Amara watching the doorway. Who's coming? You ask. Not who, she says. Whose eyes? You find out by mid-morning. The headmistress of the harem, the one who oversees the Valid Sultan's will, arrives with 2 attendants and a eunuch. She is not tall, but her bearing makes her so. Her robe is of deep green velvet, the sleeves lined with sable. Her hair is hidden entirely under a white silk scarf, and her eyes are the clear, sharp grey of winter clouds. She walks the length of the dormitory without hurry, her gaze skating over each girl like a stone skipping across water. When she reaches your mat, she pauses. Her eyes take in the fold of your quilt, the shine of your wooden comb on the shelf, the angle of your posture. Then she moves on. You don't let your shoulders drop until she's gone. The rest of the morning is tense. Assignments are given in short, clipped commands. You are sent to the textile room to assist an usto with sorting the latest delivery from Bursa. Bolts of raw silk, packets of indigo and cochineal dye, bundles of spun cotton. The air smells of earth and mulberry leaves, and your hands itch from the fine dust that clings to the cloth. The usto speaks little, but once, when you stack the bolts too tightly, she says, "Leave them space to breathe, or they'll sour." You think about that long after she returns to her own work. At midday, the kitchen hums with more than its usual energy. The dishes are elaborate: lamb simmered with apricots, rice perfumed with cinnamon, trays of baklava still warm from the oven. You help carry the smaller dishes to the serving hall for the higher ranks. The smell is intoxicating, a blend of sugar, spice and roasted meat that makes your mouth ache with hunger. When you return for your own portion, it's simpler fare, lentils and bread, but even that tastes richer than usual. Amara leans close as you eat. "This food means the Valid is hosting," she says. When she hosts, everyone is on edge. The afternoon takes you to the gardens. You've been here only once before, a walled space where cypress trees rise like dark candles and narrow channels of water run between the beds. The air is cool and damp with the scent of earth and citrus. Your task is to pick the fallen blossoms from the gravel paths. The work is quiet, but it keeps your eyes low, your thoughts your own. Once you hear voices from the far side of the hedge, women's laughter, the soft clink of porcelain cups, and you know better than to look. The blossoms pile in your basket, pale orange, waxy, fragrant enough to make your hands smell like summer. When you return to the dormitory in the early evening, the atmosphere has shifted again. The girls on the dais are already dressed in fresh linen, their hair braided and gleaming with oil. A few have kohl lining their eyes. The rest of you are told to remain in your day clothes. You're polishing a brass tray near your mat when the Kızlar Aga appears in the doorway. He speaks quietly to the Kalfa, his gaze sweeping the room once. It doesn't linger on you, but you still feel the heat of it as he turns away. Night comes quickly. The lamps are lit earlier than usual, their light warm against the blue tiles. The musicians begin before the trays of sherbet are even sent out, their melodies winding through the halls in slow, deliberate measures. You are sent to carry extra coals to the musicians' gallery. The braziers there are small but intricately worked, their copper bodies engraved with floral motifs. The players thank you without breaking the flow of their music. On your way back, you pass the door to the Valid Sultan's private audience room. It's open just enough for you to see a sliver of the inside, a low table set with dishes of pomegranate seeds and honey cakes, a tall silver ewer glinting in the lamplight. A shadow moves inside, and you look away before you can see whose it is. When you return to the dormitory, the curtain stirs almost immediately. The eunuch steps inside, his voice carrying in the quiet, a name you don't know. The girl who rises is young, no more than a year older than you. Her eyes flick briefly toward the dais, then down to the floor as she follows him out. The curtain falls shut. Hamara shakes her head. She won't be back tonight. You don't ask if that's good or bad. The hours stretch. Some girls lie awake, others drift into light sleep. You keep your eyes on the crack above your shelf, the bent reed in the wall that you've come to think of as your own small landmark in this shifting world. When the musician's call finally threads through the palace, you feel the whole dormitory stir, not just from sleep, but from the tension that's been wound tight all night. You rise, fold your quilt, and wait for whatever the next tilt in this place will bring. The tension doesn't ebb with dawn. If anything, it thickens, a honey that has begun to crystallize. The first call to prayer has barely faded when the Kalfa at the doorway announces the day's assignments. Her tone is brisker than usual, as if she's been warned to move the morning along without delay. She reads the names of the outer mats first: coal duty, water duty, laundry court, and then moves to the inner ranks. When she reaches yours, she doesn't just say Layla, she adds, inner corridor errand. That's new. Amara glances at you from her mat, one eyebrow raised. It's not jealousy. Exactly. More the look of someone filing away the fact that your boundaries are shifting. You're sent with another novice, a quiet Anatolian girl named Esma, to carry 2 covered baskets to the east wing. The handles are wrapped in silk, which means whatever's inside is valuable enough not to risk bruising. The east wing is a place you've only heard about in whispers. The floors here are polished to a mirror sheen, the tiles on the walls studded with pieces of glass that catch and scatter the lamplight. The air smells of sandalwood and rosewater, overlaid with something sharper, musk maybe, or saffron. The eunuch escorting you stops at a door carved with a lattice of tulips and crescents. He knocks once, waits, then gestures for you to enter. Inside is a room unlike any you've seen in the harem so far. The walls are hung with silk panels embroidered in gold, and a low divan covered in crimson cushions runs along the far wall. 2 attendants kneel beside a shallow table, arranging small porcelain dishes into precise patterns. One of them takes your basket and begins removing its contents. Glass jars filled with what look like candied fruits, each glistening in syrup. The other lifts the lid of Esma's basket and reveals coils of silk ribbon in shades of turquoise and coral. Neither of them speaks to you directly, but you're aware of their eyes flicking up, assessing. You've learnt that here, being seen and being spoken to are 2 entirely separate events. When you leave, Esma exhales sharply. "First time I've been in there," she says, her voice low. You nod. "What was it?" "Preparations," she answers simply. For someone, back in the dormitory, the rhythm of the day moves forward. You're assigned to the textile room for the next hour, trimming loose threads from a stack of finished garments. The fabric is so fine it almost slides out of your fingers. Each piece has a faint scent of lavender from the storage chests. The Asa supervising you checks your work twice, once without comment, and once with a quiet, "good." It's the smallest word, but it lands like a stone dropped in still water. By midday, the dormitory is nearly empty. Most of the girls have been sent to various parts of the palace. Only the outer mats remain, and they've been tasked with beating dust from the quilts. The air is filled with the dull thwack-thwack of cloth against stone. You eat with Amara in the kitchen court, lentil soup, a wedge of bread, and a handful of almonds. She chews slowly, watching the comings and goings of the eunuchs. "They're moving faster today," she says. "Something's happening tonight." You've learnt not to press for details when the answer isn't ready to be given. The afternoon takes you to the small hammam reserved for novices. The heat is softer here than in the grand baths, the steam smelling faintly of orange blossom and mint. You scrub the marble basins until they gleam, then sweep the wet tiles with a reed broom. By the time you return to the dormitory, the lamps in the corridor are already lit. Though it's still an hour before sunset, the light seems to deepen the blue of the tiles, making the gold leaf in their design shimmer faintly. The evening meal is quieter than usual. The older girls speak in low tones, their eyes flicking toward the door at every sound from the hallway. You can feel the air shifting again, the same way it does just before a storm. When the eunuch arrives, he doesn't just call a name. He reads from a small scroll, announcing not 1, but 3 girls. Each rises in turn, smoothing her hair, adjusting her shawl, and following him out. The curtain falls shut. Amara leans close to you after they're gone. That many at once means someone important is visiting. Someone the Validie wants to impress. You glance toward the empty mats. What happens if they don't? Her smile is thin. They do. Later that night, you're sent to carry warmed coals to a small chamber near the Sultan's private garden. The eunuch escorting you doesn't speak, but when you pass through the arched doorway, you can feel eyes on you from behind a carved wooden screen. You set the brazier in place and leave quickly, the heat of the coals still clinging to your palms. Back in the dormitory, the air feels heavier. The braziers glow low, and most of the girls are lying down, though few are asleep. You pull your quilt up to your chin and stare at the bent reed crack in the wall above your shelf. Somewhere beyond these walls, the music plays on, the notes winding through the palace like threads in a tapestry. You can almost follow them if you close your eyes. Almost. And then the curtain stirs. Not for a name. For him. The Kızlar Aga steps inside. his gaze sweeping the room with the slow precision of someone who misses nothing. His eyes pass over you once, then return, lingering just long enough for your pulse to quicken. He moves on, but the weight of that glance stays long after he's gone. You lie awake until the first call to prayer, the music from the night still caught somewhere in your chest. You know something has shifted. You just don't know yet, whether it's toward you or away. You don't even bother closing your eyes after the first call to prayer. The dormitory feels like it's holding its breath. The girls on the dais rise first, their movements unhurried, deliberate. They wash their faces with water from the brass basins, the splash sounding louder than it should in the morning hush. The rest of you follow, filing into the washroom in pairs, waiting for your turn at the cold water. Your fingers are stiff from the chill, but you wash quickly. No one lingers unless they have rank to protect them. Back at your mat, you fold your quilt precisely, aligning the edges until they form a straight line. This is not just for tidiness. The Kalfas judge a girl's state of mind by the precision of her bedding. The list of assignments is read out in a tone sharper than yesterday's. Your name is paired with records room. You've only passed the records room once before. It lies near the library, in a quieter corridor where the walls are painted with floral designs faded by time and oil smoke. The air here smells faintly of paper and cedar. The eunuch who escorts you unlocks the door with a key that hangs from his belt. Inside, the space is smaller than you expect. Just 3 long tables, shelves stacked with scrolls and bound volumes, and a set of pigeonhole cubbies filled with rolled documents. An older Kalfa sits at the center table, a quill in her hand. Her eyes flick up as you enter, then back down to her work. Dust only, she says without looking at you again. The covers, not the pages. You work slowly, cloth in hand, wiping the leather bindings and wooden scroll cases. Many are stamped with the Tavra, the Sultan's calligraphic signature, or the seals of past rulers. The gold embossing catches the light from the narrow window, and for a moment you're lost in the thought of how many hands have opened these before yours. Once, when the Kalfa leaves the room to fetch more ink, you notice a small stack of documents set apart from the others. They're tied with red silk cord instead of the usual twine. You don't touch them, but you memorize their place on the table. By midday, your hands are faintly scented with dust and old leather. You're dismissed to the kitchen court for the meal. Lentils, flatbread, and a dish of olives so salty they make your tongue ache. Amara joins you halfway through, dropping onto the bench beside you without a word, until she's eaten 2 pieces of bread. They're preparing for something, she says finally. They always are. No, bigger. There are messengers in the outer court. They came by kayak this morning. Messengers mean movement, and movement here usually means someone's fortune is about to change, for better or worse. The afternoon takes you to the laundry court. The sun is high, but the air cool, carrying the scent of wet linen and soap. You rinse the larger sheets in the fountain, wringing them with Amara's help, until your arms burn. The water runs cold over your fingers, numbing them, but the rhythm of the work is almost soothing. Almost. A Kalfa appears near the end of the shift, her gaze sweeping over the court. She speaks briefly to another group of girls, then leaves without acknowledging you. Amara watches her go. She's counting, she murmurs. Counting what? Who's ready to be moved? That evening, the palace feels charged again. The corridors are brighter, the lamps polished so their brass gleams. You're sent to the musicians' gallery earlier than usual, carrying a tray of sherbet cups. The air in the gallery is warm from the braziers, and the instruments are already tuned. As you set down the tray, one of the younger musicians catches your eye. "Big night?" he says in Turkish, his tone casual but weighted. You don't ask what he means? Back in the dormitory, the Kalfa arrives with the scroll. She reads 3 names, 2 from the dais, 1 from the row just behind it. The chosen girls rise without looking at anyone, their shawls draped neatly over their shoulders. When the curtain falls behind them, the air settles into a quieter kind of tension. Amara leans toward you. When they take more than one, it's usually for a guest. You glance toward the empty mats. What kind of guest? Her expression doesn't change. The kind you don't meet unless you're ready to be remembered. The night moves slowly. You're sent once to refill the water basins, the cold metal handles biting into your palms. In the corridor outside the washroom, you pass a eunuch, carrying a silver tray covered with a silk cloth. The scent of roasted nuts and honey trails behind him. Later, as you settle on your mat, you hear the faint sound of laughter from somewhere beyond the dormitory. Not the laughter of girls, but deeper voices, male, though still restrained. The sound fades quickly, replaced by the steady hum of the braziers. You wake before dawn, not to the bell, but to footsteps. Slow, measured, careful not to wake the whole dormitory. You open your eyes just enough to see a Kalfa standing over one of the mats near the center. She touches the girl's shoulder, murmurs something too low to hear, and the girl rises without a sound. They leave together. Amara stirs beside you but doesn't speak. You both know better. The morning comes with the usual rhythm: washing, folding, assignments. Yours takes you to the smaller garden court, a place of stone paths and potted orange trees, their fruit still green. You sweep the fallen leaves into a basket, the air heavy with the scent of damp soil. When you pass under one of the arches, you hear voices from the adjoining arcade. Will she stay? That depends on the valid. The words follow you all the way back to the dormitory. By midday, the dormitory is nearly empty again. You sit on your mat, mending a tear in the hem of your shift. The bent reed crack above your shelf catches the light, and you realize it's grown slightly since you first noticed it. The thought unsettles you. Even the walls here change when you're not looking. Amara drops onto the mat beside yours, her sewing in hand. 2 girls were moved to the inner wing this morning, she said. You glance at her. Permanently. She nods. They won't be back. That evening, the curtain stirs earlier than usual. The eunuch who enters calls just one name. The girl who rises is from your row, only 3 mats away. She adjusts her shawl, takes a breath, and walks past without looking at anyone. The curtain falls. The room stays silent longer than usual. You lie awake long after the lamps have been dimmed. Somewhere beyond the walls, the music starts again, slower this time, almost mournful. The notes wind through the corridors, catching in corners and dissolving before they reach your ears fully. You stare at the crack in the wall until the first call to prayer threads through the stone, and you wonder if tomorrow's list will have your name in a different place. The next morning, you wake with a sense that something in the dormitory has been rearranged. Though your mat is in the same place, the same bent reed crack still above your shelf, it takes you a few moments to realize what's different. It's lighter, almost expectant, as though the room itself knows what you don't. The Kalfa enters with the day's list in hand. Her tone is even, but her eyes are quick, checking each face as she reads. Your name comes later than usual, paired with Valid's outer wing. Amara's gaze meets yours for half a heartbeat. A silent, heavy message. This is not an ordinary chore. You're escorted by a eunuch down corridors you've never walked before. The tiles here are paler, the patterns more intricate, and the scent in the air is different. Sandalwood layered with something floral you can't name. The quiet is deep, but not empty. You can feel movement behind closed doors, the hush of voices, the faint rustle of skirts on polished marble. You stop at a set of double doors painted in soft green, each panel carved with tulips in low relief. The eunuch knocks once, opens them just wide enough for you to pass, and gestures you inside. The room is filled with light, streaming through latticed windows onto a floor covered in Anatolian carpets. Low divans line the walls, piled with silk cushions in shades of cream and gold. In the center stands a table, set with porcelain dishes of dried figs, sugared almonds and small pyramids of candied orange peel. An attendant in a pale blue shift greets you without smiling. She hands you a tray of empty glass sherbet cups and instructs you to polish each one until you can see your face clearly. You take a seat on the floor beside a basin of warm water and begin. The glass is thin, delicate under your fingers. You work slowly, careful not to leave streaks, your movements deliberate and silent. Every so often, you hear the muted sound of footsteps in the adjoining room, the low murmur of women's voices, and once, a burst of quiet laughter. When you finish, the attendant inspects your work without comment. She nods toward the door, and the eunuch escorts you back the way you came. By the time you return to the dormitory, the morning assignments are nearly done. Amara sits on her mat, plaiting her hair with a strip of green ribbon. She watches you as you settle down. Well, she asks. You shrug. Just polishing glasses. Her smile is small. They don't send novices to that wing for nothing. The midday meal is unremarkable. Lentil soup, bread, and a dish of olives. But the atmosphere in the kitchen court is different. The voices quieter, the laughter fewer. You hear snatches of conversation about a visitor arriving by Kaikai that afternoon. The details are vague, but the way the Kalthas move faster confirms it's someone of rank. In the afternoon you're sent to the gardens again, not the novices' court, but the larger walled garden near the inner wing. The cypress trees here are taller, the water channels broader, and the scent of orange blossom heavy in the air. Your task is to gather the blossoms that have fallen into the water channels, placing them in a shallow basket. The petals cling to your fingers, their waxy texture leaving a faint, sweet residue. As you work, you notice a pair of attendants walking slowly along the path. Deep in conversation, you catch only fragments. Presentation tomorrow. Valid's choice. Not without risk. They pass without looking at you, their voices fading into the rustle of the cypress leaves. Evening comes with its usual shift in the palace's rhythm, but tonight there's an added layer, something in the way the eunuchs move, brisk but careful, their expressions unreadable. The lamps are lit earlier, and the air carries the scent of roasting meat and honeyed pastries. You're sent to the musicians' gallery with a tray of fresh coals. The players are already in place, their instruments tuned, their faces composed. One of them, the same young man who spoke to you days ago, gives you a brief nod as you set down the tray. Busy night, he murmurs. Almost to himself, back in the dormitory, the Kalfa arrives with the scroll. She reads only one name. The girl who rises is from the dais, her shawl perfectly draped, her expression calm. She leaves without looking at anyone. The curtain falling behind her, the room exhales. Amara shakes her head. Only one, she says quietly. That means the guest hasn't arrived yet. The night stretches long. You're sent once to carry warm water to the Harem, the steam rising in fragrant curls as you pour it into the marble basin. The Harem is empty at this hour, its warmth almost unbearable after the cool corridors. When you return to your mat, you find a small square of candied orange peel tucked into the fold of your quilt. You look across the room, but no one meets your eyes. Sleep comes in fits, broken by the occasional shuffle of feet in the corridor or the creak of the door curtain. Once you hear the muffled sound of voices from the far end of the hall, low, urgent, quickly silenced. By the time the first call to prayer threads through the walls, you feel as though you've been awake all night. The morning assignments are read in the same brisk tone as yesterday. This time your name is paired with inner wing preparations. Amara gives you a look that's half warning, half curiosity. Careful, she said. You're taken to a room you've never seen before. High-ceilinged, with latticed windows letting in soft light. Along one wall stands a row of tall cabinets, their doors open to reveal neatly folded garments. Kaftans in silk and velvet, robes embroidered with gold thread, veils in every shade from ivory to deep crimson. The attendant in charge hands you a folded piece of pale rose silk. Press this, she says, gesturing to a low table set with a small charcoal iron. You work slowly, smoothing the fabric under the iron, the scent of warmed silk rising into the air. The garment gleams under your hands, its embroidery catching the light. You fold it carefully when you're done, placing it back on the shelf, as instructed. The rest of the morning passes in the same way, pressing, folding, arranging, until the garments look like a display in a merchant's finest stall. At midday, the meal is richer than usual. Rice cooked with cinnamon, lamb stewed with apricots, and a small square of honey cake. You eat slowly, aware that such meals are rare for those in the novices' wing. Amara joins you, her expression thoughtful. They're getting ready for something, she says. Something that will touch every mat in this room. The afternoon takes you back to the gardens, this time to scatter rose petals along the main path leading to the inner wing. The petals are soft under your fingers, their scent clinging to your skin. You work in silence, the sound of your own breathing loud in the still air. As you finish, you hear the distant sound of a kaiko's oars slicing through the water. You don't need to see it to know the visitor has arrived. Evening falls quickly. The palace is a tapestry of movement. Eunuchs carrying trays of sweets, attendants adjusting curtains, musicians tuning their instruments. The air hums with anticipation. In the dormitory, the Kalfa arrives with the scroll. This time, she reads 5 names. The chosen girls rise, their expressions composed, and follow her out. The curtain falls behind them. Amara exhales slowly. Tomorrow, it will be more. You lie on your mat, the scent of rose petals still on your hands, and stare at the bent reed crack in the wall. The palace beyond these walls is awake in a way you've never felt before. You can feel it, moving toward you. The night after the 5 girls are called feels different from all the others you've endured. It is not louder. The same muffled footsteps still pass along the corridors. The same braziers hum faintly in their copper throats. But the silences are sharper, edged. Every pause feels deliberate, as though the entire palace is holding still, listening to something you can't hear. You keep your head turned toward the wall, pretending sleep, but your ears follow every sound. The soft slide of slippers, the faint creak of the curtain rod, the click of a latch somewhere far down the hall. It is impossible to know which sounds belong to ordinary chores and which mark the passing of something more dangerous. At one point in the long hours before dawn, you hear the Kızlar Aga's voice, low, steady, speaking in the rhythm of commands. You cannot catch the words, but the tone is unmistakable. Someone is being moved. You count 3 sets of footsteps that follow, one heavier than the others, and then the sound fades into the deeper belly of the harem. When the first call to prayer threads through the palace walls, it feels less like a summons to worship and more like a release from an unspoken test. The dormitory stirs, quilts folded, water basins filled. You wash quickly, your fingers numb from the cold, and return to your mat to await the day's assignments. The Kalfa reads them with clipped precision. Your name comes midway, paired with 2 words you've never heard in your own orders. Reception court. Amara looks at you from her mat, her braid half finished. That's not common for novices, she says under her breath. What does it mean? It means you're going to see the people we only hear about. The reception court is unlike anything you've been allowed near before. The ceiling soars above you, painted with sprawling floral patterns that seem to bloom right out of the plaster. Light streams through high windows, catching on the polished marble floor. Every step you take echoes. Along one side, a line of eunuchs in formal robes stands at precise intervals, their hands folded in front of them. The air smells of polished wood, beeswax, and the faintest trace of rosewater, not from the curtains, but from the cushions set in careful order around the perimeter. Your task is simple, at least in theory. Polish the low tables and lay out fresh silk covers for each one. The silk is pale cream, smooth as water under your fingers. You keep your head down as you work, aware of the steady weight of the eunuch's eyes. Once you catch a fragment of conversation from beyond a half-open door. Presentation this evening. The valide has made her choice. The voices fall silent as footsteps approach, and you focus on your work until the room is empty again. You're dismissed before midday and sent back to the novices' wing. The air there feels heavier now, as if the walls themselves know something the girls do not. Amara meets you at the doorway. They're saying the visitor is a pasha from the provinces, she murmurs as you settle onto your mat, and that the valide will show him the best of the court tonight. You know better than to ask if show means conversation, dance, or something less safe. In the harem, those lines shift, depending on who draws them. The midday meal is rice with lentils and a single date for each girl. The date is soft, honey-sweet, the pit warm in your fingers. You eat it slowly, stretching the taste until it's gone. Afterward, your next assignment takes you to the outer gardens to gather fresh mint and basil for the kitchens. The air outside is crisp, the sky visible only as slivers between high stone walls. You work quickly, cutting the stems with a small bronze knife and laying them in a shallow basket. The herbs scent your hands long after you return inside. Evening preparations begin earlier than usual. The Kalfas move through the dormitory with quick, efficient orders. Hair to be oiled and braided, shifts changed, slippers cleaned of dust. Even those not chosen for the night's events are kept busy. You're sent to the musicians' gallery again, this time carrying not coals but a small carved box. Inside you glimpse thin strips of polished wood and bone, replacement parts for the canoon's bridges. you realize. The musician who takes it from you nods once, his fingers already busy fitting them into place. When you return, the eunuch is already at the dormitory door with a scroll. This time, 6 names are read, 2 from the dais, 3 from the row behind it, and for the first time, 1 from your own row. It is not yours. The chosen girls leave without speaking, the curtain falling behind them like the closing of a chapter you're not yet written into. Amara exhales. "They're getting closer to you," she says softly. The rest of the night is quieter, but not by much. You're sent on 2 errands, once to carry warm towels to the Harem, their heat seeping into your hands through the folded cloth, and once to fetch a small jar of sugared almonds from the pantry. Each time you pass through the corridors, you hear the music, bright and measured early in the evening, slower and lower later on. You wonder if the shift in tempo reflects the mood of the rooms you will never enter. When you finally return to your mat, the bent reed crack in the wall catches the lamplight in a way you've never noticed before. It seems deeper, almost like an opening rather than a flaw. You resist the urge to trace it with your fingers. Sleep comes fitfully, interrupted by footsteps and the occasional murmur of voices in the hall. At one point you hear the Kizlar Aga's voice again, closer this time. It's followed by the unmistakable sound of the dormitory curtain sliding open. You keep your eyes shut. The morning list has your name early. Inner wing errands, the Kalfa says, her eyes unreadable. You're taken to a smaller, more intimate court than the grand reception hall. This one roofed in painted wood, the walls lined with latticed windows that open onto a narrow garden. The air smells of jasmine and something sharper, clove perhaps, or cardamom. Your task is to carry folded silk napkins from a cedar chest to a table set for 2. The napkins are embroidered in gold thread with the tuggerah, each one folded into a precise triangle. You place them carefully, aware that someone will notice if the points aren't perfectly aligned. When you finish, the attendant nods once. "Go," she says simply. Back in the dormitory, the atmosphere is taut. Even the younger novices move more quietly than usual. Amara sits beside you, her hands busy mending a tear in her shift. "It will be tonight," she says without looking up. "What will?" Her needle pauses. "When they call you." The midday meal is small, bread, olives and a little cheese. The taste of salt lingers in your mouth long after you finish. The afternoon is spent in the laundry court, wringing sheets until your arms ache. The Kalfa overseeing you checks each one before it's hung to dry, her eyes sharp for any missed crease. By the time you return to the dormitory, the lamps in the corridor are already lit. When the eunuch arrives with the scroll, you hear your name before you're ready for it. Layla. Your body moves before your mind catches up. You rise, smooth your shift and adjust your shawl. You feel the eyes of the dormitory on you as you step forward. The eunuch turns, and you follow him into the corridor, the curtain falling closed behind you. For the first time since arriving in the harem, you are walking toward the unknown, not just watching it from your mat. The corridor is quieter than you expected, the lamps casting soft pools of light on the blue-tiled walls. Your footsteps sound loud to your own ears, though the eunuch ahead of you moves almost silently. You pass through an archway into a smaller hall lined with carved wooden screens. Behind them you sense movement. Perhaps other women, perhaps only shadows. You're led to a small room where an attendant waits. She gestures for you to sit on a low stool and begins combing your hair, her fingers deft and quick. She weaves a single braid, tying it with a ribbon the color of pomegranate seeds. Then she applies a faint line of kohl to your eyes. The sensation is strange, cool at first, then warm as it settles against your skin. When she finishes, she steps back, studying you for a moment before nodding to the eunuch. You walk again, this time into a larger, warmer room. The air smells of rosewater and honey, the light from the lamps softened by silk shades. Cushions are scattered across the floor, and a low table set with porcelain cups stands in the center. A woman sits on the far side of the room, her robe deep blue, her hair veiled in gauze shot through with gold thread. Her eyes meet yours for only a moment before she gestures for you to sit. You lower yourself onto the cushion indicated, the fabric cool under your palms. The eunuch withdraws and the room feels quieter, though the distant hum of the palace still presses faintly against the walls. The woman speaks your name, the one they gave you here, not the one you carried before. She asks where you're from, how long you've been in the harem, what you've learned. Her tone is neither warm nor cold. It is measuring. When you answer, your voice sounds strange in your own ears, as though it belongs to someone else. She listens without comment, then rises. "We will see," she says, almost to herself. The eunuch returns to escort you back to the dormitory. When you step inside, the eyes that lift to you are sharper than they were when you left. Amara's, most of all. "Well?" she asks. You shake your head. "I don't know." But you do know. Something has shifted. The bent reed crack above your mat looks deeper than it did this morning. You don't sleep after the meeting. You lie on your mat, the blanket pulled to your chin, your mind replaying every detail of that small, scented room. The sound of the woman's voice when she spoke your harem name. The way her eyes had scanned your face without lingering, as if she were looking for something buried deep. The pause before her last words. "We will see." That pause is louder now than the call to prayer outside. The dormitory slowly falls into its usual night rhythm. Whispers from one corner, the muffled click of a water jug's lid, the soft hiss of slippers on stone as a girl crosses to the brazier. But every sound is sharper to you tonight. Even Amara moves differently. She finishes braiding her hair without looking at you, then lies down with her back turned. She doesn't speak, not before sleep, not after the first call to prayer, not when the Kalfa enters with the morning list. Your name is read later than usual, paired with Valid's outer court. The eunuch who escorts you today is older, slower, his robe worn thin at the cuffs. He takes you along a route you've never walked, through a small courtyard with a fountain carved in the shape of a tulip. The air here is cooler, the sound of the water echoing gently against the walls. In the outer court, attendants are already moving briskly. Low tables are being set with embroidered cloths and porcelain dishes are lined up like soldiers awaiting inspection. You're given a tray of figs and instructed to place exactly 3 on each plate, stems all facing the same direction. The figs are soft, their skin yielding under your fingers. The sweetness clings to your hands, the scent rising each time you reach for another. When you finish, the attendant checks your work with a glance, then nods you toward the door. You return to the novices' wing in time for the midday meal. Lentils, bread, and a wedge of fresh cucumber. Amara sits across from you but says nothing until halfway through, when her voice is low enough for only you to hear. "They don't bring girls to the Valid's court for nothing," she says. You swallow your bite slowly. "They've already said that to me." Her gaze sharpens. Then hear it twice. The afternoon passes in the laundry court, your arms aching as you wring water from the larger sheets. The Kalfa in charge today is quick to snap corrections. A crease missed here, a fold crooked there. You keep your head down and work until your fingers are raw. By the time you return to the dormitory, the lamps in the corridor are already lit. When the eunuch comes with the scroll, he reads only 3 names. None of them are yours, but the room feels different as those girls rise, as though everyone is recalculating the map of where they stand. You lie down early, though you know you won't sleep. The night is quieter than most. You're sent only once to fetch warm towels for the hammam. The steam there is fragrant with mint, and the marble tiles are slick under your feet. You work quickly, eager to return to the dormitory, where at least the air feels familiar. The next morning, the Kalfa reads your name paired with Valid's wing. Preparation. This time, you're led to a high-ceilinged room with tall windows covered by carved wooden screens. The light inside is soft, filtered through the lattice. Along the walls, shelves hold neatly folded garments, each wrapped in tissue-thin paper. An attendant hands you a pale blue kaftan embroidered with silver thread and gestures toward a low table where a charcoal iron waits. The fabric is cool under your fingers, the embroidery slightly raised. You press it carefully, the iron's weight gliding smoothly over the silk. When you finish, you fold it precisely and return it to its shelf. The attendant inspects it once, then nods. By midday, you're back in the novices' wing, the air thick with the smell of baking bread from the kitchens. Amara joins you at your mat, her expression unreadable. "You'll be called tonight," she says. You look up sharply. "How do you know?" Her lips press into something between a smile and a warning. because the room beside the Valid's audience chamber was open this morning. The rest of the afternoon passes in a haze. You mend a tear in your shift, sweep the dormitory floor, carry a small tray of dates to the Kalfa's office. Each task feels like something to fill the space until nightfall. When the eunuch arrives with the scroll, your name is the first he reads. The sound of it seems to echo in the room. You rise, smooth your shift, and follow him out. The curtain falls behind you, the eyes of the dormitory lingering like a touch between your shoulder blades. The route is different tonight. You pass through a narrow corridor where the walls are hung with silk panels, their patterns of tulips and carnations almost glowing in the lamplight. The air smells of jasmine and something sharper, cloves perhaps, or saffron. You arrive at a small room lit by a single lamp. An attendant waits with a comb of carved ivory. She unties your braid, combs your hair smooth, and rebraids it with a ribbon of deep blue silk. A faint dusting of powder cools your skin, and a touch of rosewater scents your wrists. Then the eunuch leads you to a set of double doors. They open onto a chamber unlike any you've seen. Walls lined with gold-painted lattice, floors covered in thick Anatolian carpets, and low tables set with porcelain cups. The Valid Sultan herself sits at the far end, her robe of deep green velvet trimmed with pearls. Her gaze meets yours and holds it for a moment before she gestures for you to approach. You kneel, your head bowed. As she speaks, her voice is low but clear, the words deliberate, questions about your skills, your training, your origins, though you know she already has the answers. When she falls silent, she studies you for a long moment, then says simply, "We will see." You are dismissed. Back in the dormitory, Amara is waiting. Her eyes search yours as you sit on your mat. "Well, she spoke to me." Amara nods slowly. "Then it's begun." You sleep little. Your mind replays every moment in that chamber, every inflection in the Valid's voice, every glance. You don't know yet what she saw or didn't see, but you know it matters. The bent reed crack above your mat seems deeper than ever, its shadow longer in the lamplight. And you know that from this night forward, the map of the harem has shifted under your feet. You expect the summons the next morning, but it doesn't come. Instead, your name is read alongside a list of others for outer corridor cleaning. The air in the dormitory is heavy with unasked questions. A few girls glance your way as you gather the narrow-handled broom from the supply rack. Amara doesn't speak to you, but the tilt of her head as you pass is enough to say, "This is part of it." Don't think it isn't. The outer corridor is quiet, but not still. Eunuchs pass at intervals, carrying trays draped in silk cloth, their faces smooth masks. You sweep from one end to the other, the bristles scratching softly over the marble floor. Every few minutes you step aside to let someone pass, lowering your eyes as you've been taught. From behind a closed door comes the faint sound of laughter, female, light as if whatever is being said isn't meant to carry. You keep moving, careful not to pause near the sound. At the far end of the corridor, an older eunuch stands with his back to the wall, hands clasped in front of him. His gaze slides over you and away, neither interested nor dismissive, simply noting your existence for the record. You're dismissed just before midday and sent back to the novices' wing. The smell of lentil soup drifts from the kitchen court. Lunch is a bowl of that soup with a heel of bread and a single preserved apricot. The fruit is soft, syrupy and almost too sweet after the plainness of the bread. Amara sits beside you, her eyes scanning the room. "They're watching how you move," she says without preamble. "How do you know?" "Because they watched me the same way once." She tears her bread slowly. "It doesn't mean you'll be chosen. It means they're deciding whether to take the risk." The afternoon is filled with small tasks, polishing the brass trays until your fingers ache, folding freshly laundered shifts into neat stacks. The Kalfa inspects your work more closely than usual, her gaze catching on the smallest imperfections. When evening comes, the scroll is read as always. Your name is not on it. That night passes quietly for you. You're sent only once to carry warm towels to the hammam, the steam curling around your wrists as you lay them over the marble benches. Back in the dormitory, you lie awake, staring at the bent reed crack above your mat. It feels like a marker now, a fixed point in a map that keeps shifting under your feet. The following morning, the summons comes in an unexpected form, not from the Kalfa reading the day's tasks, but from a eunuch stepping into the dormitory just after the first call to prayer. He speaks your name, waits for you to rise, and gestures toward the door. You follow him through a series of narrow corridors, the light dim and golden from wall-mounted lamps. The route ends in a small room you've never seen, a preparation chamber, you guess, from the brushes and jars arranged on the low tables. An attendant waits inside. She seats you on a cushioned stool, unbraids your hair, and combs it smooth before weaving it into 2 plaits. She ties them with ribbons of deep green silk. A faint dusting of powder cools your cheeks, and a trace of kohl darkens the line of your lashes. The scent of rosewater clings to your skin when she steps back and nods to the eunuch. This time, the walk is shorter. You're led into a chamber with latticed windows that filter the sunlight into intricate patterns on the floor. Along one wall stands a low divan piled with cushions, and beside it a table set with a silver ewer and 2 cups. A woman sits on the divan, older than the Valada's Sultan, dressed in a robe of pale gold silk. Her eyes are sharp, assessing you as if you were a jewel she might or might not purchase. She gestures for you to sit opposite her. You lower yourself onto the cushion, keeping your hands folded neatly in your lap. "You've been in the harem how long?" she asks. 4 months. "Hanem." Her gaze doesn't waver. "And you've learned?" "Yes, Hanem. The rules, the customs, the work." A faint smile touches her lips. "The work is what matters." She pours a cup of water from the ewer and sets it before you. "Drink." You do, the coolness sliding down your throat. When you set the cup back, she nods once. "You may go." Back in the dormitory, Amara watches you cross to your mat. "Who?" she asks. "I don't know her name. You'll know if it matters," she says simply. The day passes in its usual rhythm. Chores, meals, small conversations, but the air around you feels different. Some girls avoid your eyes, others watch you more openly. You know this is how rumors begin, in glances, not in words. That evening, the eunuch reads 5 names from the scroll. Yours is the last. You rise, smooth your shift, and follow him out. The corridor is lit with more lamps than usual, their light casting long, honey-coloured reflections on the polished floor. You're led to the musicians' gallery first, where the players are already in place. The music begins softly, winding through the air as you move past. Beyond the gallery lies a room you've only glimpsed before. Tall ceilings painted with curling vines, low tables set with porcelain dishes of pistachios and dried figs, and cushions arranged in careful symmetry. The scent of jasmine hangs in the air. You're seated near the wall, a place for watching without being seen too much. The other chosen girls are placed elsewhere, 2 near the low tables, 1 beside a tall brass lamp. The evening passes in a slow, measured rhythm. Music, soft conversation, the quiet clink of cups. You are not spoken to, but you are looked at. When you return to the dormitory, the curtain falls behind you with a weight you can feel in your chest. Amara is awake, her eyes searching yours. "Well, it didn't speak to me." She nods slowly. Sometimes that's the test. The next morning, your name is not read for any task. You spend the first hour of the day on your mat, mending the seam of your shift. The quiet is strange, almost unnerving, after the constant movement of the past week. By midday, you're sent to the laundry court. The work is familiar, the rhythm of wringing and hanging steadying your thoughts. But even here, you feel the change. The way the Kalfa glances at you more often, the way the other girls make room for you at the drying lines without being asked. That evening, you are not called. The night passes with its usual hum of movement beyond the dormitory walls. The music, the muffled voices, the soft scrape of slippers on stone. You lie awake, your mind circling the same thought. Whatever path has begun for you, it's moving whether or not you see its steps. The bent reed crack above your mat is darker tonight, the shadow in its curve deeper than before. And you know without anyone telling you that the next time your name is called, it will not be for an errand. The morning comes with a cool stillness, as if the palace has drawn in a long breath and is holding it. The Kalfa's steps in the corridor sound sharper, more deliberate. When she pulls back the curtain to the novices' dormitory, every girl sits straighter on her mat. Your name is the first she reads. Not paired with a location, not paired with a task, just your name. The pause afterward is long enough to mean something. The eunuch waiting outside is not one you've seen before. Tall, broad-shouldered, his robe black with a narrow band of gold at the hem. He inclines his head slightly and gestures for you to follow. The route is unfamiliar. You pass through a succession of smaller courtyards, each quieter than the last, until the only sound is the faint splash of water from a hidden fountain. The walls here are painted with delicate floral patterns in pale blues and greens. The air smells faintly of musk and honey. You arrive at a set of carved wooden doors, their surface inlaid with mother of pearl. The eunuch knocks once, waits and then opens them just wide enough for you to pass through. Inside, the room is all shadow and filtered light. Heavy silk curtains are drawn back from the latticed windows, letting in slivers of the morning sun. A thick Persian carpet muffles your footsteps. A woman stands near a low table set with cups and a silver ewer. Her robe is of deep crimson velvet, her hair wrapped in a gauze veil threaded with pearls. She turns to look at you, her gaze as steady as a blade laid flat. "You will serve in the inner reception tonight," she says without preamble. It is not a question. You incline your head. "Yes, Harem." You will listen. You will not speak unless spoken to. You will move when I signal, and not before. Do you understand? "Yes, Harem." She studies you for a moment longer, then gestures for the eunuch to take you away. The day passes in preparation. You are sent to the hammam first, where the steam curls thick and fragrant around you. An attendant scrubs your skin with a rough cloth until it glows, then pours warm water scented with rose petals over your shoulders. Your hair is washed, oiled lightly, and braided into a single plait, tied with a ribbon the colour of pomegranate seeds. From there you are taken to the wardrobe room. The kaftan chosen for you is pale ivory silk, its sleeves embroidered with gold thread in a pattern of curling vines. Over it is draped a sleeveless jacket of deep green velvet. Slippers of soft kid leather are placed on your feet. You are seated at a low table while an attendant traces a thin line of kohl along your lashes and brushes the faintest dusting of powder across your cheeks. She dabs rosewater at your wrists and throat. When the sun begins to set, the eunuch returns. You follow him through the narrowing corridors until the scent of jasmine and sandalwood reaches you. The sound of music, slow, deliberate, drifts toward you, each note hanging in the air like a bead on a string. The inner reception is a room of gold and shadow. Lamps in tall brass stands throw pools of light across the thick carpet. Cushions are arranged in careful symmetry around low tables, set with porcelain dishes of figs, pistachios, and sweetmeats. You are placed beside one of the tables, a position that allows you to see much without being the center of it. The guests arrive quietly, their voices low, their robes sweeping softly against the carpet. You recognize none of them, but you know from the way the eunuchs move that they are men of high rank, governors perhaps, or envoys. The Valid Sultan enters last, her presence filling the room without a word. She takes her place at the far end, her robe of deep blue velvet shimmering in the lamplight. The music softens, almost to a whisper. Your role is simple, but its weight is not. You pour sherbet into cups, ensuring the surface of the liquid is still before placing it on the table. You offer trays of sugared almonds, taking care that your sleeve never brushes a guest's hand. You move when signaled, no sooner, no later. The conversation around you is measured. Talk of provinces, trade routes, the price of grain. The words are for the guests, but you know the Valiad hears everything. Once, a guest glances at you and asks a question, where you are from. You answer with the name of your province. Nothing more. The Validee's gaze flicks toward you, unreadable, then away. The evening stretches long, the music weaving in and out of the quiet hum of voices. At one point, a storyteller is brought in, an old man with a voice like worn silk. He speaks of voyages, storms and cities lit by lanterns, so bright they could be seen from the sea. You listen without showing it, your hands folded neatly in your lap. When the storyteller finishes, sherbet is poured again. You refill cups. The silver ewer cool and heavy in your hands. At last, the Valide rises. The guests follow her lead, their movements slow, deliberate. The eunuchs begin to clear the tables, and you step back into the shadow of the wall. The eunuch who brought you here appears at your side. Without a word, He gestures toward the door. The walk back to the novice's dormitory is quiet. The corridors are mostly empty, the lamps casting long shadows on the walls. You hear only the soft scrape of your slippers on the marble floor. When you step inside, the eyes of the dormitory turn toward you. Amara is sitting cross-legged on her mat, her gaze fixed on your face. "Well?" she asks when the curtain falls behind you. "It was the inner reception," you say simply. She exhales slowly, as though she's been holding her breath all evening. "Then your place here has changed." You lie down, still wearing the scent of rosewater. The bent reed crack above your mat catches the lamplight in a thin, bright line. You know the harem beyond this dormitory is larger, more dangerous, more intricate than you've yet seen. And now, you are part of it in a way you weren't before. You close your eyes, hearing the faint echo of the storyteller's voice and the rustle of silk robes in the lamplight. The palace has a way of drawing you deeper without your noticing, until you look back and realize there is no way out that leads to the life you once knew. Now the corridors grow quiet, the lamps burn lower, their light softening into amber pools on the floor. Somewhere far away, a fountain murmurs, its water slipping over worn stone. The air is cool, scented faintly with the last traces of rosewater and jasmine. You feel the weight of the night settling over the harem, not heavy, but certain. The way a quilt settles over a sleeping figure, the walls hold the day's secrets close, keeping them folded in their quiet chambers until morning. Your breath slows, matching the rhythm of the palace as it drifts towards sleep. The silk beneath your hands is cool. The sound of your own heartbeat is steady. The echo of voices, of music, of footsteps in distant halls fades into a softer hum, like the sea retreating from the shore. Somewhere beyond these walls, the city sleeps too, its light scattered like stars over the dark curve of the water. Here, you are inside the stillness, part of the quiet breathing of a place that has seen centuries pass through its doors. You let your eyes close, knowing the night will carry you forward whether you dream or not. Sweet dreams.